back to GRTS News. Diplomatic relations between South Africa and Rwanda are at an all-time low. Kigali and Pretoria have been engaged in tit-for-tat expulsion of diplomats following allegations that Kigali has been behind a spate of attacks on Rwandan dissidents in South Africa. We have details in this report.
The London embassy in Pretoria, South Africa is emptying out quickly. 3 diplomats have just been expelled from the country along with a colleague from Burundi. The South African authorities took this action after yet another attack occurred against a Rwandan opposition member living in Johannesburg. Kayumba Nyamwasa was not at home when armed men overcame policemen assigned to protect him. This former head of the Rwandan army had already survived an attack in 2010. Many accused the Rwandan government of ordering these attacks. We believe the embassy is no longer playing the role of representing the country here. The embassy is carrying out intelligence activities which seem to have included eliminating certain individuals. Kayumba Nyamwasa was lucky compared to the former spy chief, Patrick Katregeye, who was found strangled to death last December 31st in his hotel room in Johannesburg. Rwanda has denied being involved in these attacks, although President Kagame clearly declared that anyone who betrays Rwanda will become its victim. South African authorities are angry about Kagame's declaration and his attitude.
In Africa, the term sovereignty has a very particular meaning that you don't interfere with another African country's sovereignty. So I think that's where that particular word comes from, that they can't just come in here and start shooting people for political reasons.
In reaction, Rwanda decided to expel 6 South African diplomats. This is the worst diplomatic crisis South Africa has experienced since the end of apartheid 23 years ago. South Africa is considering completely closing the Rwandan embassy in Pretoria.
More than 100 prisoners have been released from Douala's central prison in Cameroon. This comes after President Paul Biya pardoned 500 inmates who are serving such jail sentences. Douala's central prison is notoriously overcrowded, and the release of the inmates is expected to reduce congestion in the prison. And Malian President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta is in neighboring Guinea-Conakry, where he called on rebels in northern Mali to start talks with the government in Bamako. We have details in this news roundup.
116 prisoners were released from a Douala prison on Tuesday. A total number of 538 prisoners at the New Bell prison were granted a presidential pardon. The prisoners are highly relieved to be free. I thank God for releasing me after a 3-year period and for granting me good health all this time. These new releases, granted by President Paul Biya, will help relieve some of the pressure on Douala's central prison, which was built to house 800 prisoners, but now has 3,000. The President of Mali, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, is on an official visit to Guinea-Conakry. This is the Malian head of state's first official visit to Guinea. President Keïta thanked his host, President Alpha Condé, for his support during the crisis in Mali, and he called on armed groups in northern Mali to take part in talks. When brothers talk, and when we listen to each other, when the Malian leadership can be confident, we can move forward. President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta's visit will last 3 days, and during this time a number of partnership agreements will be signed between the 2 countries. An international conference devoted to migration has just ended Tuesday in Rabat in Morocco. Politicians and experts from Africa and Europe discussed the eventuality of providing undocumented migrants access to basic rights and services. The conference coincides with pressure on Melilla, a Spanish enclave in northern Morocco. Growing numbers of sub-Saharan migrants are constantly arriving in the Spanish enclave.
Crimeans are bracing for a referendum on whether it should quit Ukraine. Meanwhile, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius says sanctions against Russia could come this week. Regardless of the referendum, power is already shifting on the ground. Pro-Russia armed men have been consolidating their hold on key sites in Crimea. Nick Patton-Walls got close to a military base and saw how those armed men took command.
At one military base in the Crimea. It's not friendly, but very much in charge, and apparently pro-Russian. The Ukrainian flag here pulled down fast. Let me show you how, in a matter of hours, it all unraveled. Earlier that morning, the flag was up. We came because their commander, Vladimir Sadovnik, had been kidnapped the day before at a checkpoint. His deputy here says the pro-Russian Unity Party were behind it. The commander's called his wife to say he's okay.
If they try to blackmail us into giving up the base, it won't happen, and we will call his abductors terrorists and won't negotiate with them.
We meet Vladimir's wife, Yulia, at his home, who hasn't slept with worry. Her husband called her 40 minutes ago from a new number to say he was held in Simferopol's military headquarters, now in pro-Russian hands. We couldn't confirm that, but she calls back and says she's Vladimir's wife, but nobody wants to talk to her. They want, I think, him to surrender, she says, but I believe in my husband and his convictions. Back at the base, things have moved fast. The deputy tells us so-called self-defense forces have burst in. They're not happy to be filmed. He tells me he's a Ukrainian resident, but not much else that's polite.
Well, this is perhaps part of the answer of what happens to the thousands of Ukrainian soldiers still on their bases, still loyal to the new government in Kiev. Pro-Russian militia muscling in.
The deputy explains to me there are about 15 gunmen inside, and they want to take 10 vehicles from the base. He adds that they came back with Vladimir, the commander kidnapped earlier. This is how power changes hands here, bloodless, but in the shadow of kidnapping and at the end of an AK-47. Nick Payton-Walsh, CNN, Bakhchisarai, Ukraine.
We'll now take our second break. The weather report is next. Welcome back. We'll now join the Weather Center to look at what nature has for us.
The source assures us of a continuous flow, and from there, everything follows. And for those of us who know what the River Gambia stands for, understanding its sustainability in all aspects of life is easily confirmed. The River Gambia provides nutritious delicacies as food, while it provides its wildlife a balanced ecosystem. This river, as a sanctuary, is committed to its inhabitants' needs without season. And as you travel along, all these values are replicated in one company, Elton. Just like the River Gambia, leads in its commitment to values that matter most. Elton, championing the vision for a new generation.
And before we take leave of you, a quick reminder of the day's top stories. His Excellency the President of the Republic, National Chairman and Party Leader of the Alliance for Patriotic Reorientation and Construction, Sir Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya A.J.J. Jammeh, has pardoned renegade party members who were expelled from the APRC for standing against